This is our second lesson in a series of three on evaluating, interpreting, and responding to cartoons and comic strips. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to answer a question on a comic strip or a cartoon and it said, explain for 3 marks, explain how the writer creates humor in this cartoon? And you look at this cartoon and you think, but I don't find it funny. Believe me, you're not the only one. Many a learner has actually done that in the end exam, wrote, I don't find this comic funny. And the bad thing about that is that 3 marks went down the drain. So you're going to have to find a tip or two as to how to go about finding humor, because remember I said that they are meant to amuse. You'll have to find the intention of the actual cartoonist to see how he tried, at least, to create humor. So the first thing then to remember is you cannot say, I don't find it funny. You can, of course, if you want to, but you're going to get no marks for it. So they are meant to amuse. So find something, right? So whether or not you find the comic strip funny is really beside the point. You must identify how the cartoonist attempted to create the humor. There will, believe me, there will be questions on this aspect of humor in every one of these question 4s of paper 1. So let's have a look. Now, I would say that the intention of this cartoonist is to actually comment on this very same thing. That comic strips, although they are meant to amuse, are rarely found funny by anybody. So let's look at what happens here. There are 2 characters and they are meant to represent something. Let's see. The first one says, well, here we are in a comic strip. The second one says, we'd better get to the joke. First one, yeah, a comic strip we only get like 3 panels. So we have 3 panels and we still need to be funny. We're not funny yet. And the other one says, and we're already in the second panel. Third one says, shoot, we're at the end and we don't get to be funny. Good grief. So can you see that this is really an ironic twist here? Here is a comic strip about being funny and they can't be funny. So that actually just makes fun of this whole idea of that we don't really find things funny very often. Now, let me help you. Let me give you an idea as to how to go about finding the intention of the cartoonist, and just follow this rule. The first thing to look for is situational irony. You really have to look for situational irony, which entails the following: a reversal of expectation. Can you see it in this comic strip? They are supposed to be funny, and yet they cannot find a way to be funny. Is there a reversal of expectation? Listen to what I said. They should be funny, but they can't find a way. The thing to look for is the word but when you look at it. If you see a but, think irony. The moment you get that, you're onto the answer. So, cannot think of something funny to do that is humorous. Supposed to illustrate some humorous situation, cannot think of anything funny. So, very simple. Don't make it complicated. If there's a but and there's situational irony and you're asked how is the cartoonist trying to be funny? Is he trying to be humorous? You say, he makes use of situational irony. 1 mark. How? You say there's a reversal of expectation, and you're going to have to illustrate it. The characters are supposed to, but they cannot think. 3 marks for you. It's as simple as that. Even if you did not find this funny at all, look for a but in your thinking about this, and you'll find situational irony, and just 1, 2, 3, it's as simple as that. So, let's look at this, for instance. There are other ways in which humor is created. But as I say, situational irony is your first resort. So let us look at this comic strip. And we're going to look at other aspects that might be humorous. But as I say, these are secondary things, and you're going to have to try and work it into your situational irony idea. There are aspects to look for when you look at comic strips, things like, and cartoons. Setting. What is the influence of setting on the comic strip? Remember, we are now going to try and make sense of this comic strip. So look at setting. What is the contribution? We're going to look at facial expression, and we're going to look at body language. Right. So each of these things are important. Each of them, is important in terms of our making sense of this. What is the setting here? Okay, this is Madam and Eve, and they have just had a visit from 2 aliens, right? And the aliens are about to move, to go away, right? They're going to fly off now, right? The setting is that Madam and Eve are at home, and they were visited by 2 aliens. That's in their home, visited by 2 aliens. And they are going away now. That's the setting. See? We're going to look at facial expression. There are certain things that immediately stand out. The big eyes, the eyes staring at the aliens. Once again, let's look at the body language and the facial expression. Eve looking down at Madam with her eyes half closed, as though she's suggesting something naughty, right? And Madam looking up at her and wondering what she means, right? Then we've got the setting being continued here, and some words, and then of course we see that the facial expressions are changing again. And in the 4th, there's another facial expression, the eyes, with eyes looking up as if to say, oh, really? Or wow. So we have these various changes in the various comic strips in the facial expression of Eve. Now, once again, I assure you that there will be questions on body language and on facial expression. And you're going to have to try and figure out from the meaning of the whole comic strip what they mean. How the facial expression or the body language actually suggests something about an attitude. It's always about what does the facial expression or the facial expression say of Eve in the 3rd frame suggest about her attitude, or suggest about her emotions, or suggest about her feelings. It's always, what does the expression look like? You must be able to describe it. Here, for instance, her eyes are stretched wide open. She's looking straight at the viewer in surprise. And the same happens with Madam. So within the context of the actual text, what does it tell you about her actual feeling? If they had, referred to frame 2 and look at her facial expression. See how her lids are lowered. And we're going to perhaps look at that for a moment and to see how that expresses something about her feelings. So the aliens are there, they're flying off, right? And Madam asks, where are you going next? And they say they're going to America. And of course, it looks as if Eve has her ideas about what's going on in America. What will they find there? And she lowers her eyes and says to Eve, ask them to take you to their leader. He, almost, right? She has something up her sleeve. So if you were asked about the facial expression there, you can say that her eyelids are lowered and it looks as though she's saying something to Eve, and she's suggesting something naughty, right? She's mischievous. Then, to their very surprise, they say, oh, we know, we've heard about him, his name is Donald Trump, right? So look at the wide open eyes. What would that in frame 3 suggest about their feelings? That they are very surprised that these aliens have actually heard about an actual president in the world, right? In America for this matter. Right. So, and then of course we have, can you see already a kind of reversal of expectation when they say, not only have we heard about them, but we've heard that he's a big fan of aliens. And of course, can you see the but in there? We all know that Donald Trump is really not such a big fan of aliens in terms of immigrants. And so what do we say about the facial expression here? She is looking upwards as if to think, well, good luck to you. Because there's a but there. It's ironic because they don't understand the punning going on here, and that aliens, in terms of Trump's talk, is really immigrants, and he's actually not a fan. Then, so look at example questions that you might expect. So, in terms of setting, perhaps you can go and try and answer them for yourselves and just find an answer which is more or less similar. How do you think the presence of the aliens contributes to the humor? Right? So you could mention any situational irony thing there, that they innocently think that what Trump had said about being a fan of the aliens is really true. That is the case. However, you can bring in the irony there. You can talk about the way in which they are depicted. How is that funny? They are standing on the chair showing that they are very small, they're purple little bodies and so on. You could comment on that and you will get some credit for it. Kinesics is, of course, just what we said about body language and eye language. It is about the movement of your eyes, your arms, your legs, etc. Where they will say, explain how the body language indicates attitudes. We've already spoken about that. You can also, some more questions on that might be, comment on how Eve's facial expressions in frames 2 and 3, and please note that they refer to frames 2 and 3. Then if you refer to frame 1, you will not get the mark. So make sure that you always refer to the frame and how the facial expressions then suggest feelings. It's always about the body language and what does it express about a feeling which is inside. Easy enough. So you make sure that you explain the body language, what the body movement is all about, eyes, hands, whatever, and then what does it say about the character and his feelings, etc. Here we can also look at setting, we can look at facial expression, see how lines are used to suggest movement. Sometimes there are questions on that. See how, again, facial expressions, there's a smug look on the face of this man. He is smiling. What about his body language? He has his arms in his hands in his pockets, and he doesn't want to do the exercises like the others. He thinks he'll just go into a sauna and sweat it out. So the smug look and the way in which he's walking here, how it suggests his attitude that he does not believe in exercising, right? Suggesting attitude then. Here also we can see, once again, if you want to go and examine that by yourself, where the lady says to the photographer, can you make me slimmer, get out some grays and reduce my wrinkles? Look at what she says and how that supports the actual fact that this lady is not too young anymore. But look how she virtually flirts with a man. She's fluttering her eyelids, and she's suggesting that she wants to become prettier. He must now just sort of fix this photograph. It's obviously in the old days. Now we can fix it very easily, as we know. But what he says, oh, so what you're asking is that I leave and come back in 10 years ago. So in other words, I must come back in 10 years. So what he's being sarcastic, really, and sarcasm is just a form of irony. There's this but thing. So humor here. She wants to look prettier. She's fluttering her eyelids. She's trying to get him to make her look younger. And he says, okay, so really, how do you think I'm going to do that? So you've got that but thing. So what do you see? Situational irony. So just say that. And then say the situational irony, say what she says, and how the but comes in, what he then says. So for the 3 aspects, you'll get your 3 marks. So if we look at aspects again, just a recap quickly. The purpose might be satire. The topics may be human or social behavior, politics, public figures, something in society that's strange. We've looked at body language, that's the movement, kind S6. We looked at speedy action, where the streaky lines are. You must also look at punctuation. Very often, if they put like question marks or exclamation marks, they have a purpose. And we've looked at speech bubbles and thought bubbles. When you answer, please remember your mark allocation will suggest to you how long your answer must be, and how detailed it must be. If it's a 3-mark answer, make sure that when you answer, you must distinguish 3 very distinguishable parts of the answer that might be worth a tick somewhere. Please read your questions very carefully. References to frames, as I said, are very important. Your answer should be detailed, should be focused. In other words, don't mention things that are not important. And always back up whatever you say with details from the text. You're going to refer to specifically the alien standing on the chair. That's details from, do you understand, from the actual frame. So if you just a quick recap, what would this, if in terms of the meaning of the pictures in the context of cartoons, obviously this is caricature. Shame, not a very nice depiction of her, but that's what caricature is all about. Here is body language. What is here? It's suggesting movement or speed, isn't it so? Because back up from the thing, the car is in the air and the lines go down, suggesting he's moving forward and at a great speed. Easy enough, isn't it? So really quite simple. Look at comic strips and cartoons. Follow these rules. You're bound to get a very good mark for this question if you just remember the aspects to look out for. Until next time, bye.